message is very, very simple. We want to educate the kids, not indoctrinate them.
She doesn't want these projects in her backyard, in Warringah. She wants them in yours.
What's wrong with Australia today?
For me, it's leadership. There's just a lack of leadership.
We should be energy independent here in Australia. We've got everything.
And it's good to see the community come out and really engage in this issue of parental rights.
You only have one vote, but it's very powerful.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Commanding the Narrative. My name is Steven Tripp. Welcome to everyone who are watching us live on Facebook, Rumble and YouTube. If you are watching live, you'll be able to comment in real time and you'll also be able to call in. I'll put the link in the chat at some stage throughout this interview. If you want to call in and have your say and ask a question, I encourage everyone to do so. We love hearing from our audience and we haven't had too many callers lately. You guys are getting slack. You need to get on the phones and click that link and be part of the conversation. But we've got a very important guest today who is really pushing an important cause. And I want to get to her quickly. But before I do, I'll let you all know about how you can support us here at Commanding the Narrative. And I always kick things off with buy me a coffee. Now, if you want to throw us a few dollars, if you appreciate what we're doing at Commanding the Narrative, you can head to buy me a coffee and contribute there. It's a nice way of letting us know, that you acknowledge us and you appreciate us. And it gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. So it's much appreciated if you could head to buy me a coffee and just throw us a couple of dollars. It helps pay for the stream and everything like that. Also, the t-shirt shop is up and running. If you want to go out and get your own ex-candidates or Commanding the Narrative t-shirt, you can. It's xcandidates.tshirts.net.au. I'll be wearing these shirts out pretty soon. I got my order the other day. Very comfortable t-shirts. I was very impressed by the comfort and the quality of these t-shirts. So hopefully when I get my life back after we've done the forum tomorrow, I'll be putting some more designs up of the t-shirts and we can, give you some more creative types of t-shirts on the shop. And finally, just to let you know, tomorrow, it's finally come. The day is finally here, the 2024 Environment and Energy Forum. We're going to have Dick Smith. He's going to be speaking and presenting. We're very excited to have Dick Smith present there. He's going to be speaking about nuclear energy. Barnaby Joyce, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia and federal member for New England, is going to be there. Always a great speaker, Barnaby. Senator Malcolm Roberts, he has been under the weather, but apparently he has recovered. So hopefully he's going to be there fighting fit. But he's always a fantastic speaker as well. He's usually the one that brings the house down. Malcolm Roberts, Dr. Peter Ridd, he's going to be speaking on a panel with the Institute of Public Affairs. Alexandra Marshall, she's going to be hosting the Q&A. So it's going to Craig Kelly as well. Craig Kelly is going to be there. He's also going to be contributing on the Q&A. And we are going to have a lot of VIPs in the audience as well. I heard Topher Phil may be coming. Joel Jamal may be coming. So you'll have the opportunity to mingle and mix with these people in between. This is going to be a very important panel. Now, you may not recognize some of these people. You will recognize them if you do watch Commanding the Narrative, because I have interviewed 3 of them in the past. But this is our rural people panel, our rural communities panel. This is the one that you really need to pay attention to. They've got on-the-ground, face-to-face experience with these renewable projects, and you need to hear what these people have to say. The IPA panel, which I mentioned with Daniel Wild and Brianna McKee, they're going to be with Dr. Peter Ridd. And this one's going to be great as well. Nuclear experts panel, Dr. Mark Ho, Tony Irwin from Nuclear for Australia, Professor Stephen Wilson, and also Paul Vallejo, who I'm sure you all know. Paul's always on this podcast and always giving us some fantastic information. So the Eventbrite is closed, so you can still get tickets. You'll just have to rock up on the day. You can pay cash at the door. You can also have credit card facilities and debit card facilities and all that. So please join us. It's going to be a fantastic day, a fantastic event. And, if you're anywhere near DY, please come and join us. You won't regret it, I am sure. Now, on tonight's episode, we've got, as I said, a very important guest. She's pushing a very, very important cause. She's down in Victoria. She's a former nurse. She did lose her position due to the vaccine mandates, and now she's fighting back against the government for people that are living in New South Wales and Queensland and other states around Australia, believe it or not, Victoria still have mandates down there. Who knows what's going on in Victoria at the moment, but let's bring on Jessica right now to talk about it. Jessica Davies, welcome to Commanding the Narrative.
Thank you, Stephen. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me on the Commanding the Narrative.
No, it's my pleasure to have you. Do you want to just start off by giving people just a short background? You were a nurse. You were a registered nurse, right? And you had quite
Yes, correct. Yes, so I was actually a registered paramedic and also a registered nurse. So both careers for approximately 20 years, and my employment was abruptly terminated because I was actually unable to comply with the vaccine instructions, just like thousands of employees here in Victoria. So yes, as you mentioned, the vaccine instructions are still in place for Victoria.
And you would have, like being a paramedic and a nurse for such a long time, you would have been used to being a hero amongst, in the eyes of the community. And then suddenly I'm sure you've had the smears of anti-vaxxer and all these other tags that they try and smear people with. I saw the Herald Sun wrote an article about you at one point,
Yes.
trying to say that you were leading an anti-vax movement in
Yeah,
Victorian
very
health.
interesting. Yes, that's right, Stephen. And there was a lot of assumption. And I think that it was a little bit disrespectful, because if people had a greater understanding about how we were treated and perhaps thought about the fact that to be in health, we actually are not opposed to vaccines. We need to have vaccines to be in health in the first instance. So my understanding of someone who's an anti-vaxxer is someone who is opposed to all vaccines. But I think with any medical procedure, medication, well, besides the fact that legally we are allowed to be informed and have free consent to any medical procedure, but we can choose which vaccine might be right for us, and also have that consultation with the prescribed bodies or alike, so your doctor, your GP. So yeah, very interesting that you were labelled into a general category as an anti-vaxxer if people did elect not to have one vaccine. So I've had vaccines all my life. I've been in health. I've been in the career for about 20 years. I have a family, a young family. They've all been vaccinated. So in regards to these vaccine instructions, the treatment is, well, very, very unfair, to say, to put it politely. But yeah, there's a lot more to it than people saying they don't want it for whatever reasons. Some people weren't able to have it, so a big difference.
That's a crazy thing. Like, I always hear this term anti-vaxxer. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, it's smeared across people, but it's such a
it's quite a derogative term. Like,
it is, and it's meant to be. That's the purpose of it.
It's quite slandering, and it's factually inaccurate as well. So yeah, a little bit of nonsense, I think.
Yeah, but it's unfortunately it's so effective of putting people in a box and smearing them and trying to silence them. And we know all the other terms that are out there as well. But going back to, I guess, almost the beginning of the mandates, when did you first start hearing that they might come in, and how did you react to hearing that there were going to be vaccine mandates?
Well, through the pandemic, I worked just like thousands of healthcare employees did. Personally, I was actually on work cover with no capacity when I was instructed to have a vaccine. So that was when I first found out about these instructions to have vaccines. So it was probably late 2021 is when we, paramedics and nurses in Victoria, received the instructions to have vaccines or face termination.
Did any of your colleagues try and push back, or were they all on board with it?
We were never pushing back as such. So a lot of paramedics were obviously aggrieved with the approach, the treatment, how we're being managed, and we were dumbfounded by their approach. So have this or else be terminated. So we wanted a little bit more clarification. We wanted to have a greater understanding about I guess, the vaccines and the risk assessment of the situation. And if people were unable to have the vaccines for whatever reasons, if there were other employment opportunities or roles that we could be afforded in the interim. Some people wanted to wait for different, the COVID vaccines, but a different COVID vaccine that would be released in months to come. And
Like, for
trying to
example, the
work with the
Novavax?
employer. But yeah, that's right, exactly, the Novavax. But there was just a blanket date that all employees across the service needed to fit into. So regardless of your circumstances or wishes or offering to suggest different roles, working roles in the meantime. So there was no leeway. And it was the treatment that we received that we were extremely aggrieved with.
Can you expand on that? Because it seems like a lot of big corporations, and that can extend to public facilities like health and education. It seems that the management seems to have this attitude of it can just push the employees around, and it wasn't quite that way even just 10 years ago. It seems to be a development that's happening across a lot of industries, even before COVID, in the lead up to COVID. But can you give us some examples of how they were treating you?
Well, yes, I can give you a lot of examples, but I guess it is terrible. It's a shame that is the culture that's, I guess, growing. But I think with people like myself and the people in our causes going through legal processes to say, no, this is not okay. We can't be treated like this. This gives hope to a lot of Victorians, a lot of Australians, to put an end to that approach. Management can only give reasonable direction. No citizen and no government body can break the law. We have laws. And I think holding people to account through legal processes will help put an end to that culture that you're referring to.
Yes. Well, you said it right there. It's the culture. So do you think the culture needs to change?
Definitely. And there's lots of people that are doing, what I just mentioned to stop individuals and also educate other people on what to do if you do face that treatment. So, I think a couple of examples that come to mind. I think people need to understand that if you're giving an instruction, that doesn't supersede other laws. So you need to take into consideration if people have other disabilities, other circumstances, work couple laws, and so on. Not everyone can fit into the one instruction. So employees have different needs and circumstances.
I remember during the pandemic, I had a few phone calls from different people, and oddly, I was getting a lot of phone calls from nurses. And one lady always sticks out in my mind. She was almost in tears on the phone with me, and she had previously had a bad reaction to the flu vaccine, and I think from memory developed a rare case of arthritis or something from it. And she was petrified about getting the COVID vaccine, and she knew she was going to lose her job, but she was kind of torn between these two places. One, she wanted to keep a job. The other side, she wanted to keep her health, what little health that she had left after the flu vaccine injury. And she was distraught. And there was nothing that I could say that could help her in that situation at that time. But this is the situation that these poor people were put in. And I've said it all the way from that moment, that the story of the unvaccinated has not been told in this country or elsewhere in the world, because a lot of the times people just get silenced or they just get smeared. Oh, you're just an anti-vaxxer. You're just a crazy person. But everyone had very unique circumstances as to their own personal situation and their own medical situation as well. So just to put a blanket over everything and say, you have to get vaccinated to keep your job is madness. It's absolute madness, and not taking into account people's individual circumstances. It brings back a lot of memories from me at the time, because I don't know how people got through this. and I don't know how yourself have got through this. I don't know how your colleagues have got through this.
Mm.
How has your life changed since the mandates came in?
Well, for myself, my circumstances, I was on work cover for quite some time, actually. Only in recent times has my work cover claim ceased. But however, I did apply myself within my capacity to work as much as I could possibly work. So I worked for a first aid service. I worked with Nurse on Call, juggling a young family, and heavily working with the group of Victorian health employees and the paramedics through the legal process since we were terminated. So that has been a major focus and a voluntary non-paid role, but so imperative and important to see this through. So I've mainly worked with the people in the causes under Australians Working for Australians.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your petition because I think that's incredibly important. We need to bring that up straight away and encourage people to sign.
And
what I'm
how
going
did
to
I
do?
come about that? Because
Well,
I realised that in some states in this country, people have got to the point where they've got to court, and so the judge that has ordered the vaccine instructions to cease, essentially. But other states in the country have reviewed the vaccine mandate to see if the instructions are still warranted, taking into all sorts of factors. So we've got our causes, we've got the people who are going through a legal process, but the e-petition is something that has recently been created and sponsored by Maura Deeming, and we are circulating it on social media to try and get approximately 10,000 signatures for a parliamentary debate. So this is another important call for action that can potentially help all Victorian workers.
so you have to be in Victoria to sign it, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's Parliament of Victoria, Legislative Council for all Victorian citizens.
Okay. So I put the link to the petition in the chat if you're listening live or watching live. I'll also put in the show notes if you happen to catch up with this later. But you mentioned a social media drive. This is the video that you put out on social media. So we'll play this now. And if anyone sees this, share it out. Share it to anyone that you know in Victoria. We need people in Victoria to sign this petition.
Hello, Victoria. My name's Jessica Davis, and fortunately, a terminated paramedic and a terminated nurse, just like thousands of other workers in the state. I'd like to introduce a new e-petition to the Parliament of Victoria called Review the Vaccine Mandate Imposed on All Workers. What is an e-petition? An e-petition is an opportunity for citizens to have a voice. It is a call for action. We need the Legislative Council and the decision makers to review the current vaccine mandates, the strict measures that are in place to date, taking into consideration that the state of emergency is declared over. We have high vaccination rates, we have high immunity, and we have healthcare workers that are burning out. So taking into consideration all factors, we need the decision makers to review the current situation. And essentially what we're asking for is for the COVID-19 vaccines and also the flu vaccine directions to cease immediately, and also issue a state directive to all the employers to reinstate the employees that were terminated because of the COVID vaccine mandates. How do we get this done? We need 10,000 signatures for a parliamentary debate. So let's go to www.aw4a.com.au, sign, share across the state, and let's get this job done.
Well, look, congratulations to you for doing this. I'm sure you never imagined that you would be in this situation, having to make videos on the steps of Parliament, trying to get 10,000 people to sign a petition. But how important is this for people that
Extremely important. We've got people on Centrelink. People are unable to just go back to university to be afforded the same income that they had. People have sold houses to sort of scrap up some income to pay for their bills. It obviously causes a lot of strain on families. People just want to get back to work and be treated lawfully, fairly.
And how crazy is it that we're in 2024? We're now in June. It's halfway through 2024, and these mandates are still in place. And you say on the petition, you say it's not just for health workers, it's for all workers in Victoria.
Yeah.
How is it possible that there are still mandates in place? Do you think it's just the pig-headedness of these politicians that they just don't want to back down from the narrative that they pushed during the pandemic?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I can't understand. I can't comprehend, because you have some sectors who basically dropped the mandate. They're not encouraging people to or instructing people to have vaccines anymore. But then other industries still are. The pandemic's been declared over. The the immunity rate is high, either through acquired or natural. It just does not make sense. And in other states have deemed unlawful or reviewed the mandate, they're not warranted. So, yeah, it's just a bit of a mess down here in Victoria.
Now, I see that you currently only have 1,349 signatures. Now, under normal circumstances, people would say, don't make that public. You know, we want people to sign. But for these things, we need to point out it's an incredibly difficult to get this stuff out on social media. We don't have big media behind us. I'm sure you don't have big money behind you. Pushing campaigns like this are grassroots campaigns.
I'm sure there's more than 10,000 people that want to sign this, so it's just a matter of getting them out there.
Getting it in front of people, and it's up to people watching this and the audience and anyone that comes across this. You have to help Jessica, help her get this out there. It is extremely important that everyone gets active and involved.
And it's for all healthcare workers and essentially all Victorian workers who are still being negatively impacted by these instructions. So some people, they don't blink an eyelid. It doesn't bother them, and that's fantastic. But some people really don't like being treated, even more so now that we know that we're being treated unlawfully. So because of the fact that it's been deemed unlawful in other states. So even more so, people are aggrieved and disgruntled with going back to a workplace and being treated the way that we have been over the last couple of years. So I know that there's more than 10,000 people out there, so it's just a matter of getting it out there.
There'd have to be 100,000 people out there that want to sign this thing, probably even more.
And the sooner we get this done, potentially we have the Legislative Council and all the decision makers that are involved to reconsider these vaccines and instructions to see if they're still warranted.
Yep.
So it would be wonderful to get this job done within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, the faster the better. But unfortunately, with these things, it takes some time sometimes. But we're focusing on the poor people that lost their positions, and of course, they do need the focus on them. They do, as I said, they need their story told. People need to know what they've been going through, the trauma that they've been going through, because it has been traumatic for them. I lost my job as well, and I was out of work for 5 weeks, and that was traumatic for me. I can't imagine people that are still out of work now, but there's also the other side of this, and that's the health professionals that are still working, but they're working with a reduced workforce because good people like yourself and others are sitting there on the sidelines, unable to contribute. Are you still in contact with a lot of them, and how are they
definitely, yes, a lot of them, and it's just nonsensical. They're burning out, and for lots of reasons. Okay, so they're working really long hours, their shifts are already quite long, and then they feel that they're working unreasonable amount of overtime, they're not getting meal breaks. But there is a staff shortage in Ambulance Victoria and across the healthcare system. So it just would make sense to bring back registered professionals, experienced healthcare workers back into the workforce to help with the healthcare system and all the issues. So that would decrease the burnout rate just by bringing back people to help out. So obviously there's a lot of other things that need to be sorted, but it just makes sense just to get everyone back to work to get on board.
And if you were to go back to work, what threat could you possibly pose to people?
Zero.
I mean, that's the crazy madness behind it. The madness behind all of this. Like, we know that these vaccines, and we know they do not stop transmission. We know everyone, whether you took it or you didn't take it, you were all lied to. They weren't safe and effective. They don't stop transmission. So what is the difference between having a vaccinated nurse or an unvaccinated nurse?
Yes, yes, a big question mark there. So, yeah, look, essentially, with any medical situation, virus, illness, we know as healthcare workers that we throw a lot of preventative approaches and a lot of treatments as well if we have an issue, a situation. And so I think that just saying that we're going to handle a pandemic, heavily focusing on, I know we wore masks and PPE, but heavily focusing on we just need to have this vaccine or else be terminated. It just really the measure just wasn't warranted. It just wasn't justified. We don't feel that it was. But however, we were happy to comply and do what we were told. We were going to lose our jobs otherwise. But even more so now, the risk is so minimal. So as of, according to data from the Department of Health, as of February 2022, over 90% of people aged 16 and above have received 2 doses of COVID-19. And since the pandemic began, how many people would have had COVID by now? They've got natural immunity. So immunisation rates, natural immunity. So we can't understand why we're not afforded employment if we don't have all these vaccines still. That measure it just can't be that strict now in 2024. It's time to move forward. It really is time to move forward.
It's clear that it's just become political now. They don't want to go back on their own political decisions. So how dangerous is that? It's no longer a health issue. Now it's a political issue.
Yeah, and if this is a political issue, that's shameful. It really is, because we're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with health, medicine. It should never be clouded with politics, ever.
Yeah. Now, I've got a comment here from Martin Taylor, and a lot of people would probably think this is a very cynical comment, but a lot of people feel like this out there because they feel unrepresented by their governments. And Martin says the Australian government is a UN government. It is no longer a government for the people of Australia. You're petitioning to negotiate with an organisation that has no intention of applying any consideration to the Commonwealth citizens that are opposed to the agenda. So essentially what Martin's saying is, you're going to push this petition, you're asking for this to be debated in Parliament, then what's going to happen? Do you think the people in the Parliament are up to debating this?
Well, let's find out. It's only an avenue that we are trying, because we won't stop trying all avenues until we achieve what we know rightfully we should be afforded. So if we're not successful with the petition, we've got the other avenues, which is the legal process, and we'll get to the federal circuit. So hopefully we have the Legislative Council and decision makers that take into consideration already advertised through the Department of Health their immunity and COVID vaccination rates. And all the other issues. We've got healthcare workers burning out. We've got the public waiting for ambulances and to be seen by healthcare staff in the emergency department for far too long. So we need to take into consideration everything and see if it's still warranted to have such strict measures in place. So there's no guarantees, but we can keep trying, whatever avenues we need to keep trying to basically get the workers back to work in a lawful working environment.
Now, I've just put the link in the chat if anyone wants to call in and ask a question. I encourage everyone to call in and just let Jessica know how amazing she is for pushing this petition and doing all the hard work.
Amazing.
Well, someone's got to do this stuff.
I feel compelled to do this, Stephen. I just feel compelled, and I just feel that there's so many people that are behind me supporting what I'm doing. We're all doing this together. So the amount of comments and text messages and calls and emails that I'm receiving daily, I'm working on this now daily, every day until we achieve our goals. So, no, there's a big team behind this face tonight. So, and there's lawyers, there's barristers, there's a lot of other people that are doing their best to sort this out for us.
Martin mentioned the politicians in Parliament, and we know Moira Deeming has supported your petition. Has there been any other politicians out there that have backed you and supported you in this?
I haven't personally spoken or communicated with other MPs, but obviously we see their material on social media, and we can see that they're obviously like-minded and in Parliament doing their best to, Malcolm Roberts and lots of politicians obviously have tried. So there's no guarantees that this avenue will work, but yeah.
Well, you have to try. You have to
That's
push
right.
and keep going. But maybe a question related more just to pure Victorian politics. Do you see Moira Deeming being a future leader down in Victoria? I feel like she should be the leader of the Victorian Liberal Party.
I think she's amazing. I think that she's a very powerful woman. She is doing a lot of great work for the community, and that would be wonderful if that happened for us. Should be our next Prime Minister, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I'll be doing a lot better than the guy that's in there now. But what about legal avenues? I know you've spoken to me and you said that there have been legal fights that have been happening. How have they gone, and what legal fights and avenues do you have in the future?
So I can explain a little bit about what steps we've actually taken so far, as in the group of paramedics. So soon after before termination, we actually lodged a complaint with the Fair Work Commission. But unfortunately, even though our employer had received notification that we had a date pending at the Fair Work Commission, everyone was terminated except one person in that group application. So by default, we weren't afforded that Fair Work application. We were terminated, and a lot of people took their matter to Fair Work, and they weren't successful. So as time's gone on, we sourced a barrister and a solicitor who's actually had promising results with the vaccine mandate in the country. And so we've engaged in their services, and they've actually put the necessary parties on notice. So they've given a legal letter of notification to the parties that obviously we needed to address with this situation, and that we have not had the desired outcome that we wanted. So we will now continue. So we're at the point where we're about to file a group application to the Federal Circuit. So that's one avenue, or potentially, hopefully, the e-petition will get the result that a lot of Victorian workers want as well.
Well, the more signatures you get, the more pressure you put on these politicians. And look, if people have already signed the petition, that doesn't mean that you have no other outlets. You can call your local member, you can email them, you can write them letters. Just continue to keep putting pressure on them. And if you know of people that have accounts of things that they've had to go through because they've lost their work or they've had to sell their home, let these politicians know. Write to them. Whether you think they're going to read it or not, they will have to read it. They might put it in the trash and ignore it, but
I have written to actually all of the members of the Legislative Council, so there's about 40 of them. So I've actually communicated with 40 of those members, so they're all aware about the petition and the causes and what the group of Victorian health employees and paramedics have done and are continuing to do at the moment. So, and we've had really good feedback and support from all of those people, which is fantastic.
Now, you've also started the Australians Working for Australians. Do you want to let everyone know what that's all about?
Yeah, what is that all about? So essentially, we realised going through a legal process that we wanted to have a structured and a professional approach. So I created a business, and we have a web developer that has created a wonderful website for us, and that's where all of our supporters can go to, and they can see the causes that we're facilitating. And there's two causes, so there's the Victorian Paramedic Seeking Remedy and the All Victorian Health Employees Seeking Remedy, and you can join them if you're a healthcare worker and you also want to seek your justice or remedy. You can also support the causes, so you can donate. Obviously, we need funds for the legal costs and any associated costs. You can go to the website and have a look at all the media that the group of paramedics have done so far with people like Graham Hood and others who have written media spills for us. And you can also, what else can you, well, most importantly too, the e-petition is on the website, so you can sign that.
Can you explain what the People's Library is? That looks interesting.
Oh, that was one of my inventions. So trying to navigate and find all the information that you would like to, I guess, find easily, like the unlawful court case, like the court cases that have actually deemed these vaccine mandates unlawful, is not actually easy to find. They're not broadcasting that across Channel 7, news or main media or whatnot. So I thought what I'll do is actually collate all the information and the links so people can see and have confidence. They know and they feel that this is unlawful and we should keep fighting and pursue for justice, but sometimes they doubt themselves. So what I do is I collate all the court cases that have actually deemed these vaccine mandates unlawful, and so then they can easily find them and have a great understanding, and also why and what legislations they've used, etc. And that also helps them with their personal case to obviously use the same but state-driven. The state acts according to what they've used. Yeah.
And I've also put a link in the chat just then. It's the Telegram group that's your Telegram group, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So that's, Voice to End the Mandate 2024 Victoria. So that's another communication channel where people can find important information, updates, and communicate with other people as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, these groups are incredibly important for people. And I think the saving grace and the silver lining of COVID was that it did bring a lot of people together, and you built new friendship groups and new networking groups, and there's a lot more sense of community now of people that are of like-minded are getting together. It's not always dark and gloomy. Obviously, we talked about the trauma that unfortunately people have had to go through, but think of all the friendships you've made through this period.
And most importantly, our healthcare workers that are employed want us back. Early days, there was what there was. And now they have a greater understanding and awareness, and they are burning out and they don't want to leave. They want to hold the floor, but they want us back. So there's no, issues with that. No bridging going back to work. We feel that we'll be welcomed back with open arms.
Yep. Another comment here from Martin. It's quite a lengthy one. I'll try and read it all out. With all due respect to Jessica is in a belief that the COVID matter was a genuine health pandemic separate of any influence. Unfortunately, the science, the law, and the data prove that this is not an isolated event and is influenced on a world scale by organizations connected to agendas 21, 25, and 30. The world's attempting to evolve into a governmental system that does not reflect the people's wishes. Well, look, I think there's a lot of arguments for that, but that doesn't mean that we can just give up and not try things. I mean, there's certainly a whole bunch of things that we can try, and some of them might fail, but some of them might succeed. So I think more power to you for trying this petition and your other ventures as well. I think it's easy just to say, oh, well, it's all a global conspiracy and we can't fight it. We can't push back against it. Well, you have to do something. You have to try.
Well, that's right. Just like everyone else has in the rest of the country, in the other states, eventually someone got through. Eventually people get reinstated.
That's right.
In fact, actually, that's been going on for quite some time. And that's why we've got the People's Library, so people can see that the mandates have been deemed unlawful a long time ago, years ago. So, but yeah, look, I don't get into conspiracies. I'm very black and white. And there's a lot of social media that I think you need to do your own research when you hear some general, statements. So, I think that you don't want to be watching social media for too long. You feel like, you know, doom and gloom and Armageddon, it's going to happen tomorrow. It's just,
That's what they want. They want you
mess.
thinking that they want you thinking that you're powerless and you can't do anything and
No.
you're isolated and alone. It's not true.
Yeah, it's persuasive talking, persuasive narrative. Like, it's very interesting, but yeah. So no, you just need to filter what's accurate, do your own research, and just keep to the facts.
Now, for us up here in New South Wales or other states around Australia, we're all looking at Victoria during the pandemic and thinking to ourselves, what is going on down there with this guy named Dan Andrews? He looks like a complete goober, and somehow
he's not here, Vic, anymore. He's not our Prime Minister. Sorry, he's not our Premier. Where'd he go?
well, I mean, where did he go? But at the time, he had this cult-like status. People were, you know, hashtag I stand with Dan and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, look, we stay away from all that. We are professional. Like, we want to be recognised as, you know, paramedics. Like, we're registered professionals, and we stay away from politics because we feel that it's irrelevant to our situation even. And there was a lot of that, obviously, on social media and the news and in the streets. But we're aggrieved with our employer, how we were actually treated. And so, yeah, look.
But isn't your employer the Victorian Government?
What's that, sorry?
Isn't your employer the Victorian Government?
So, yes, I understand what you're saying. So, if someone else, the Victorian Government, say, let's say Daniel Andrews or the Secretary of Health, gives an order, a direction, but the next person, the people that were first in line who treated us poorly, essentially what I'm saying is they can't have an scapegoat and say that this other person told us to treat you this way. So we're holding the people who treated us unlawfully, poorly, accountable, and staying away from that arena, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
become too political over there in that area. So,
well,
yeah.
I did want to bring up Dan Andrews because I was more moving to the question of how has Victoria changed? Obviously, there's a lot of people out of work because of the mandates, but I'm hearing stories of businesses that have gone out of business. There's you know, streets that used to be bustling and full of life that are now no longer full of life. A lot of the businesses along there have gone and shut their doors. Is it as bad as what we hear? Like, how has Victoria recovered after the lockdowns?
It's not as bad as you hear at all. So I've gone out plenty of weekends. I'm still young at heart. The streets are still very lively and businesses are open. So some sectors have not been affected with the vaccine mandates. It's mainly healthcare at the moment, but still other services as well. But essentially, there's a lot of doom and gloom. I'm not saying that there aren't serious issues, but life is continuing. But we still have these issues which are affecting people's, obviously, situation and finances and being treated poorly still. So, yeah, we definitely have our issues that we need to pursue that haven't been ironed out. But I feel that social media has become a very dark place, and it's not all accurate. It's exaggerated quite often, and there's not a lot of information before someone makes a statement. There's a lot of assumptions, just like what you touched on at the start of this talk. So, yeah, I think people need to pick up the phone and actually call a Victorian citizen and just clarify what's going on.
That's why we have you on the show tonight, to get the real message out there. But
yeah, so we've definitely got the vaccine instructions still in place. That's still happening.
I think you're right, though. I mean, social media is a dark place, and sometimes, I mean, I go on X now, and like within a couple of seconds, I just want to hang myself. I'm like, oh my god!
But there's a lot of great people like yourself that are doing wonderful work and supporting people like us and these genuine causes, for sure. And so there's a lot of
but my main point is, like, as soon as I go outside in the sunshine and see happy, smiling faces on people walking past, I mean, the world is very good, and there's a lot of good people out there. Unfortunately, social media paints things in a dark way, and people can get caught up in all of that, and it can change people's perceptions and perspectives.
Yeah, well, that's right, exactly. So, if you, read, positive affirmation cards all day, you're going to feel great. If you, look at social media, some of those social media channels all day, you're just going to want to stay in your dark place, for a month. So, there's a lot of psychology that I think is going on, like a lot of led narratives with not a lot of information, a lot of assumptions, with a lot of issues, but also there are genuinely a lot of real concerns for some of the ways that people are still being treated, though.
Yep. Got a comment here from Pauline. Hello, Pauline. I am finding so many unaware of what is still happening, and getting the messages out to those outside the echo chamber is challenging. Do you find that, if you happen to mention that there are still mandates in place, do you think people are out there unaware that there are mandates and they're shocked by that?
No, they're not. In Victoria, that we're not shocked. We know that it's still in place. No, definitely people are aware of that here in Victoria.
Yeah. Okay. What ultimately do you want to happen? Do you want to just be able to go back to work and go back to your old world, essentially, or are there other outcomes that you're hoping for?
With vaccine, suggestions, it was before the pandemic. Basically, healthcare employees would be sort of reminded to talk to your GP about the flu vaccine because it was flu season, and some employers wanted to have an idea about who has been vaccinated and who hasn't, but it wasn't compulsory to give your information because it is prohibited information. So it's unlawful to actually even request, but collect. It was just dealt with, and the communication was very different prior to the pandemic. So I think that if we could go back to that, a lot of Victorian healthcare workers would feel safe and respected and happier in their workplace. So we have happy healthcare workers, and we have happy patients.
And all we hear about up here in New South Wales is about these ambulance ramping in Victoria, where essentially, I think the way I understand it is ambulances can't get in to the hospital as well as they should. Is that happening?
Yeah, well, there's a healthcare shortage in the hospitals as well. So in recent times, the healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, and all hospital staff, I think, on the edge of going on strike and closing beds. And so then that will cause more delays and detrimentally, obviously, impact the public. So there's a lot of issues in the healthcare system. And I think that we can at least treat everyone fairly and move forward and get our healthcare workers back to work, so we've got more numbers to help out.
And has there been, from hearing from your colleagues that are still in the profession and working, has there been an influx of maybe lesser quality nurses and doctors just to try and fill the gaps and fill the holes?
Well, look, it's I guess, it's not quality. These people are amazing. They're such good people. It's the experience level that's lacking. So I think definitely over 50% of the Ambulance Victoria staff been in their job for a couple of years, and they've come straight from
50%.
Year 12, so at least over, probably a lot higher than that. And so they're amazing. I've met a lot of them. They're great people. They're good people, and they're so keen, and they're doing a great job. But it is a job that does require a lot of experience to deliver the highest quality that we used to many years ago, from that sense, if you know what I mean. So I think that we need to, if we can bring back our healthcare staff, then we can also bring back a lot of experience, which then obviously increases the quality in the system and the public benefit. We get better healthcare.
Well, I
It's really
think,
simple. It's really simple, Stephen.
yeah, I know. But
People go
as
to
I
work
said,
and treat them nicely.
it's become political. This is the problem. I
Do
mean,
you think
it
it is
is
a
it is
political
easy.
issue?
Of
Yeah.
course, of course it is, because you still have a government in there that brought these mandates in, so they have to stand behind them. I mean, it took a legal case in Queensland for it to all come undone, and unfortunately, I hope that you don't have to wait that long down in Victoria. But it's just, it is a political issue, because if the government were to back down, they would prove that they were wrong, and it would prove that Dan Andrews was wrong, and it would prove that the health chief health officers were wrong.
Well, I think at some point, like, it's not about right or wrong. I think it's just about reviewing it, and it's not about them losing if we go back to work as we win. Like, I think we're just calling out to say, hey, this is how we're feeling. This is what's going on. Can you take a look at this situation? Because they've got a lot of issues that they've obviously got to deal with and sort out for the state. So what we're trying to do is broadcast our situation. So people are burning out who are in the healthcare system, and people are still registered and qualified and want to get back to work, but they just want to be treated lawfully and appropriately. So we're ready to get back to work to help out. So if you can have a look at our situation and to see whether these instructions as they are still needed. Do they need to be so strict? Have this or else you can't have employment? Is there a better way? Can it be worded differently? So we can make everyone happy, essentially. Take a look at our situation. So we won't be coming back going, oh, we won, you lost, or any of that. We just go, thank you so much for looking at the situation, and let's move forward, because no one wants to talk about it. We've spoken about this situation for far too long as it is.
Yes.
We just want to go back to work, So essentially, like, I think a lot of people feel like they're on this planet forever. We just want to get back to work and live our life. Move on, move forward. That's it.
Well, that's a very level-headed.
Sometimes I'm very simple.
Well, it is a very measured, level-headed, simple approach. But you're dealing with politicians here, so they're walking on eggshells all the time, worrying about the words coming out of their mouth and what causes to get behind. So, Pauline says in the chat, enough
surely
is enough.
They know that no matter what they say, they're never going to please everyone. Surely they've got a pretty thick skin.
Yes, that's right. Now, to finish up, I guess, do you have any final comments or anything that we didn't touch on tonight? Again, as we said, get onto your website, sign the petition. We need to get this out there to people. Share it around. Share it to your friends and family and enemies and whoever you need to get it out there to. Call up your local radio station. Write into your local member of parliament or your local newspaper. Get this out there, because this needs to, as you said, if this can get in front of people, I'm sure people would be jumping out of their skin to sign this petition.
Well, that's it, exactly. So if one person could share it with two people, obviously we'll get a lot of signatures sooner than later. So we've got a couple of call for actions, and that is the e-petition, sign and share, and also go to the website and you can support the causes through the legal process. It does cost. We hate asking for money because obviously no one really has any after the last couple of years. So we're not asking for a lot. We're asking for the cumulative effect. So even if you could donate $1 or $2 or $5, then that will help us pay for the legal costs to keep going and also go through the legal process sooner than later, because obviously we've got to pay the bills every step of the way. So website, donate, or join the cause, because we are more than happy and we want to help as many people through the legal avenue to get back to work as well. But also the e-petition, it might potentially be a way that we could get the job done sooner than later.
And I think you're a clear example of someone who's sitting outside on the sidelines waiting to get back into their profession. You're level-headed. You're very positive. You don't want to attack anyone. You're coming at this from a pure, virtuous sort of way. You just want to do a good thing and get people back to work without any revenge or malice or anything behind it. So I think you're a clear example of the good people that are out there that unfortunately are sitting on the sidelines and they just want to get back to work.
Yeah, well, that's right, exactly. So, no, we want to get back to work to be with our colleagues, and they want us to come back to help them. And it's time to unite and just move forward, get back to work. So that's essentially sums it up, Stephen. Sign the petition, go to the website, support the causes.
Yep.
Let's get this job done.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for coming on tonight and letting us know what you're doing and how they can sign the petition. If you were to go back to work tomorrow and get back into nursing, what is it about nursing that you love? Why is it so fulfilling for you?
It's a rewarding role, and I enjoy helping people. And I know that sounds so cliche, but I'm also, as I mentioned, a very simple woman. I just love helping people, and it's a rewarding job, and it's what I love doing.
Awesome. Well, the website is aw4a.com.au. That stands for Australians Working for Australians. And you can head to that website, sign the e-petition, stay up to date with everything that Jessica is doing. You can also head to Jessica's Facebook page, All Victorian Health Employees Seeking Remedy. Again, it's got the Australians Working for Australians logo on there. Follow her on the on Telegram. There's the links in the chat. I'll also put it in the show notes as well if you want to follow the Telegram, and keep up to date with everything that Jessica's doing. Because as you can see, I think everyone can see how genuine you are. So I think
we're all genuine.
Well, that's
people like me too. We're all lovely. We're all lovely, good, qualified, experienced people, and
you can't take someone's employment away from them. You can't take food off their table.
You can see a lot of the other people too that are doing exactly what I'm doing through the website as well. If you have a look at the media section.
Okay, well, thank you everyone that has watched tonight, has been active in the comments. Pauline says, "Thank you, Jessica, for speaking up." I'm sure a lot of the viewers share those sentiments. And please share this out. I say it every single time, but I think in this circumstance, this is one of those ones where you really need to listen to me.
Yes.
And get on the phone now on your mobile, or get on the computer and click
on the link and sign.
First sign it. First sign if you are in Victoria. If you're outside Victoria, unfortunately you can't.
I'd love to wake up tomorrow morning and see 10,000 signatures. Oh, that would just make my day. Come on, guys, we can do it. Let's go, Victoria.
You wouldn't know what to do with yourself, though. You'd be like, "Oh, what do I do now?"
Call you and go, "Thank you very much, Stephen." Even more so.
That's right. And also remember, tomorrow is if you are in Sydney and not Victoria, the 2024 Environment and Energy Forum. It's on. As I said, Eventbrite's closed. You can rock up at the door and get your ticket. Please join us there. We've got some great guests. A lot of work has gone into organising this. So we would love to see you there. And please share this out. And thank you, Jessica. It was a pleasure having you on tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. And for everyone else, we'll see you all next time. Thank you.